Hey Arcaders, Ray the Arcade Guy here from the arcadearchives.com. Here with another news segment. I'm going to try to do these at least once a month to kind of get everybody up to speed on everything video game and arcade related that might be out there that would be of interest to people on the Arcade Archives website and beyond. One of the things that has really been getting me the last couple years is the, I don't want to say the collapse, but the missteps taken by Arcade1up. Now, everybody knows about my love-hate relationship with Arcade1up over the years. When they initially started, I kind of scoffed and said, it's not really an arcade game, coming from the collecting and or repair and or business side of it. I didn't get it at the time. Then around 2019, I got my first cabinet, which was the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And then, of course, the subsequent year, I got the 40th anniversary Pac-Man Arcade1up. And I grew to like them a lot, is a good way to put it. I appreciated that they're easy to move around, easy to mod, easy to change hardware. Those are the things that make these very appealing for people who not necessarily want to collect the classics like a true collector, like I have been in the past, but to have that all-in-one machine that could do everything that they want it to do and get that arcade experience at home. And they were on their way. By 2021, they were starting to see problems. Of course, the whole Dragon Slayer debacle, and it was backed up a year, and then they finally released a working version of Dragon Slayer, which was highly sought after. And of course, they had Tron, Street Fighter series. They had a lot of exclusive deals with Capcom and Namco and everybody else. Well, in the last few years, they've kind of fell back on themselves. Is a good way to put it. There's another way to describe it. They basically said, well, we have these titles, we'll just keep re-releasing the same thing over and over. And the last news thing I did was about the fact that, here they have all these licenses, why not create cabinets for them as opposed to just the same thing over and over? And things were looking up. I mean, things were looking great, because here you had Basic Fun, who decided they were going to jump in, and they were the ones that did the little mini cabs everybody sees at Walmart and kind of laughs at them, but they're really nice little trinkets to have. They just, like I have a bunch of them, and they're on my shelf in my game room. They decided, hey, we're going to start building our own cabinets too. So they did. And then came December, when the rumor went out that Basic Fun was going to buy out Arcade1up. Now, really what happened is anybody's guess. I mean, you can go and look up the information, but as it stands, Basic Fun, I guess, owns a portion of Arcade1up now. And, of course, they released the phenomenal WWE Superstars cabinet that was amazing. And they did the Return of the Jedi cabinet, which, in my personal opinion, I like the shape, the form factor. I thought it was really cool. Then they did their mini cabs with Asteroids and Centipede, and I mentioned how I loved how the instructions were clearly labeled, and it had that feel of a real arcade cabinet, even though it was so small. Well, then they started, hyping up something was coming. And let me show you what came. And honestly, not a huge fan. I'm going to say it right now. They could have done a better job. They could have done so much more, but they didn't. So this is the Joust and Rampage Deluxe Arcade. Now, what's missing? It's Rampage, right? Oh yeah, Rampage is a 3-player game. Why does this thing only have 2 controls? 2 sets of controls. It does not make sense to me. Here you have Rampage, which they've done a cabinet before. That was like one of their very first cabinets was Rampage, and they created this cabinet, and you know, the artwork notwithstanding, because they had a lot of control issues and artwork issues in the beginning, it was a very good cabinet. It came with a lot of good games on it, but here you have Joust and Rampage, one cabinet without extra controls for the third player. So now you have George, Lizzie, and Ralph, but you don't get to play as one of them. Now, I'm going to go on a limb and say they probably altered the code a little bit so that you could select what character you want to be, and that's fine and dandy. But think about this. You've already done a cabinet. Let me pull back here a little bit. You've already done a cabinet like this guy, okay? Now, they're going on status levels of cabinet, okay? This is their Supreme Series. Why didn't you make Rampage a Supreme Series option? There's an idea. You could have used the same control panel, okay? The angular, wider control panel for 3 controls. Use the same cabinet, for crying out loud. It doesn't really matter. Add the artwork, Bob's your uncle. Or better yet, here's another option. Why don't we go with this one? And I thought about this. Let's take a look at this cabinet. Why not make an upgrade for this cabinet? Sell a wider control panel that would allow the customer to mount a new control panel on top, giving them 3-player access. Okay? Add an extra $100. Say, okay, $100 gives you the extra wider control panel, and then you have your 3 controls. Call it a day. That's the way they should have done it. The way they've done it is you get a different header and control panel overlay to cover the marquee and the control panel. That's fine and dandy, but still it's a 3-player game in a 2-player cabinet. Well, you could argue the same thing because the original Rampage had Gauntlet in it, and that would have eliminated one character as well. Okay? It's just poor planning. It's just poor strategy, in my opinion, that you would create. You have these amazing titles that you can produce, and instead of doing something that people can gravitate towards and want to spend their money, you slap everything into one cabinet and hope for the best. And it to me, doesn't jive. And it goes back into something else I brought up in the past, which is you keep making the same cabinet over and over again. Okay? That is a huge problem. You know, you have more titles than Pac-Man and Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. How about, and now this is, maybe nobody thought of this. Maybe I'm a genius or something. I don't know. How about you make a cabinet design for every single different game you have and add all the games to the same cabinet? Okay? I know it sounds weird, but think about it. Okay, if you were to look at what's on this machine, let's take a look here. Okay? Let's scroll in here. Okay? We've had a Joust, we've had a Rampage, we've had a Mortal Kombat. We've never had a Defender that I know of. Gauntlet, hello. This is one of those defining games I call icons. Okay? And one of these days, I'm going to do an article on different games that would be considered an icon. Icon meaning it changed the direction of the industry the moment it came out. And you go back as far as Space Invaders to Pac-Man to Donkey Kong to Dragon's Lair. Gauntlet is one of those. The minute Gauntlet showed up, it changed the landscape forever of multiplayer gaming. Okay? Before that, you had games like Joust. You had games like Mario Brothers. But they were limited to mostly 2 to 3 player gameplay. Okay? Gauntlet became the first, if not one of the first, 4-player simultaneous arcade games ever made. In a medieval D&D theme, you're in a maze. You have to exit, get keys, get treasure, get food, get power-ups, that kind of thing. It altered the landscape. So much so that Sega released Quartet, which in itself is another multiplayer, different themed, but similar style arcade game where you could buy in. You had to get the key, you had to exit the room, you had to get power-ups, you had to get... I don't know if there was any treasure or anything, but it was a space-themed. And I love Quartet. That would be another one. Like, that was one of my dream cabinets, was Quartet. But Gauntlet, I've had one. And it would have been easy for them to create a Gauntlet cabinet. They could have done it and then added everything into it. You could do multiplayer, you could do whatever. Prime example. I have my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, okay? 4-player, all right? When I first got it, the first thing I did was I put a Pi in it. That way I could play multiplayer side-scrolling beat-em-ups of every shape and size in that cabinet, the maximum being 4. So now I can play, if it has a jump, a punch, and a joystick, it's in my cabinet. That's what they should have done here. They could have easily done that. Just put the games in that match that cabinet's functionality. Okay? Give us something different. I'm going to point this one out because I did the last episode. Wizard of War, for crying out loud. Arcade1up, what are you thinking about? You could have done a Wizard of War cabinet. It would have been beautiful and people would have paid for it. Maybe make it, we'll call it Select Series, you know, limited production run. You know, it's just shoving the same stuff out over and over and over again and hoping that you keep your customer base. But then you realize that millions of people have bought these cabinets are getting tired of buying the same one. You know, you can only slap a coat of paint on the same thing and call it different before people realize it's the same thing. You know, you have Tapper, for crying out loud, you could have made a Tapper machine. Bubbles. Paperboy would have been hard because, you know, in order to get that authentic Paperboy experience, you need the handlebars. And that would have made the price of that cabinet extraordinarily higher. So I would probably think they would not do a Paperboy. But imagine them doing a 720, all right? Or a Marble Madness. Or, you know, you have the... Now, I don't know what their contracts stipulate. What games? Is it all games or is it certain games within a company? Who knows, okay? The bottom line is, out of this, you could have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Tubin is another one. You could do Tubin very easily. 7, 8, 9. I wouldn't worry about Clax because Clax is terrible. So out of all of this, you'd have a really good roster of cabinets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, I would consider Mortal Kombat 1, so let's go again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cabinets out of this one machine. Okay? And let's face it, you only have to make so many. Okay? And, you know, if I was to start a business like this, I would build games to spec. Okay, because I'd be a small businessman, I would not be expected to build thousands of units to sell in retail. I would say, okay, I'm a custom order business. I can build it to spec, and that's it. It's a little bit different for them. I get it. But imagine having that roster alone from this list that would give them everything that they wanted and needed to sell. People would buy it. There are collectors out there, maybe collectors that can't find that cabinet, maybe collectors that don't have that money to collect those games. And the collector market nowadays is very different because I've said it before, the collectors who have everything, okay? It becomes this back and forth, you know, trade opposed to selling it at a ridiculously high price because they feel it's that worth that much to them, but in reality, you know, you start to see after months and months and months the price going down until it's at a price point that somebody could actually afford it. And it's a whole thing. Whereas these guys could set you up in a cabinet. It's not original, of course it isn't, okay? But they could set you up in a decent cabinet that looks the part, plays the part, and gives you everything you want. And you could have all of those 9 different games out of this one cabinet, as opposed to let's throw 2 games together that really it doesn't make sense to throw together in the first place, because honestly they were for 2 separate companies when they came out, and they're from two different points of the 80s. You know, Joust was made in 82, early 80 game. You know, Rampage, I think, was 86, 87, somewhere around there. You know, tastes had changed. Games had changed. Graphic capabilities had changed. Very different era, you know. If I was to make a Joust cabinet, I would probably put Wizard of War and Joust together, well, for two reasons. A, they're medieval themed, and B, they're two-player. So it would work out perfectly to have Wizard of War and Joust together. You know, it boggles the mind that they can't figure this out after all this time. It's like, just rush it to market. Who cares? End of story. Now, the one thing I do appreciate is the artwork design. Okay, I really like the artwork design. As much as I hate collages, and most people know I do, I love that they retained the lined artwork from the Rampage cabinet, and they brought it over to the Joust and made it earth tone colors that would match that game. The Starburst was something that they put on Williams cabinets. It was not as prominent as that. I believe it covered up a copyright. It was a real sticker that was put over top of the stenciled artwork, the paintwork that they had put on it. I think it was to cover up a copyright, if I'm not mistaken. And anybody in the comments, let me know if I'm wrong, but I think that was the case. It covered up their little copyright symbol, and you would see that little starburst on every Joust cabinet. So I like the artwork, and I appreciate... Another thing I appreciate, notice that the control panel is separate. It is... you can see that the fact that this is a separate box that connects to the main cabinet. That gives it more of an arcade quality feel as well, in my opinion. So I like that. One thing I don't like is how narrow the cabinet is. Everything that Arcade1up is doing now, they've shaved off like 3 or 4 inches off the width of the cabinet. And to me, it's almost like it's going to tip over kind of thing. You look at it, you can see it more prominently in Pac-Man. It's bizarre. I mean, I get the concept, I get the idea. You know, 2 games in 1, but to have, unless you have this set up so that you can select what character you want to be at a 2-player level, this is pointless, because now you can't play one of those characters. So you just lost money on it. You know, I don't think that's a great idea. I also don't like how close the buttons are to one another, because of the width of the cabinet is different. Everything is super tight. I think we'll see it in the next picture. Nope, hold on. I do love that the fact that they put the Arcade1up coin door. I wish they'd done that on earlier models like mine. I think those would look a lot better. It's great you have a light up header. Here we go. Prime example. Okay. See how close everything is? You're practically laying on top of buttons. And I don't like that. Everything is so narrow, everything is so tight. It just makes for very frustrating gameplay, because you can hit a button, and if that button reacts to something, you know, to me it just doesn't, you know, fewer buttons. You could have made it so that, you know, there were 2-3 buttons on there tops, and that would have been fine. I don't get the whole, well, because they have Mortal Kombat in there, but I don't like it. Guys, I don't like it. It screams, throw something out. Get it out there now. That's what they were doing. They were like, we got to have something, and let's just get it done. And who cares? Let's just get it out. You can see it more prominently here. How close. Look at this guy. That is so uncomfortable. I have to hit one button over here, but I'm avoiding 5 other buttons. I'm like, no. That to me is terrible. The first thing I would do at this cabinet, see how close they are too? I mean, it's too much. The first thing I would do at this cabinet is basically build a new control panel for it. I would take the specs, make it, at least 3 inches wider, maybe a little more on either side, so that would give you an extra 6 inches total. And then I would put that third player control on there. But then again, at that point, because you'd have to figure out how to wire it up to their board set, which is proprietary, I would put a Pi in it at that point. I wouldn't waste my time. You know, and I'm a huge fan of Joust. So for me, having a Joust cabinet would be really cool. But, you know, I don't like the combination between Rampage and Joust. It makes no sense at all. None whatsoever. Now, let's go over. I want you to. This is something I thought about. Okay, there's another company in the mix. There's At Games. Okay, now I have a video. It's going to be done whenever I get a chance to finish it. But I got myself the At Games Pinball Micro, and I had wanted one for about a year. I like the form factor. It gives me the virtual pinball fix. I mean, it's not real pinball, but it feels nice. It's got, you know, everything I want on it. But they've been making cabinets themselves for a few years now. And, you know, At Games is never... They're another one. They, you know, mixed quality, things like that. But the thing with them that I appreciate is the fact that they at least seem to be doing this a better way. Okay, so if I go in and I say, for example, let's look at one of their cabinets. Okay, this is the Ultimate and this is the Mini. Okay, so let's go into their standard cabinet. Now, it's a bit more. Okay, you're talking $200 more. But look at the size of this bad boy. Okay, it's huge. All right. Let's see if we can. Oh, here we go. So let's just take a gander here. So it's massive. It comes with every control that you need. So it's wide enough to do everything, including, if you notice, there's flipper controls here, which means it must allow you to download pinball machines on it. All right. This is a heavy-duty, all-in-one. It's probably made of the same material, so I can't really call it heavy-duty. But I can tell you from my experience with my Micro, the artwork is better because it doesn't peel off like a banana after a while. I like that you can see that they added the bezel artwork. You can see the sides here. That's really cool. I've never really been a fan of throwing stuff on the front of the cabinet. So, like, for example, I would probably get some black vinyl, cover that bad boy up right away. I'm not a fan of collages, but I get it. Very plain, very simple up here. You know what you're getting. But let's take a look here. There's room to play. There's room to play. Okay. Let's see if we can get a better shot of the... Are they going to give... No, they're not. Okay. So basically, up here you have two sets of joysticks. You got your buttons. You got paddle controls. You got a trackball. You've got the buttons here. But more importantly, that they do that Arcade1up should really think about doing is the fact that you can download games from their site. Okay? So their thing is like the guy who founded Gillette, the company that made the razors. Their slogan was we sell the razors and we give the blades for free. Okay, back in the day, and that's basically what they're doing here. Is they're saying, okay, we're charging a bit more. Okay, $900 for our cabinet, but you know what? You're going to be able to buy packs of arcade games at a very minimal cost compared to what you paid for the machine. All right, and you can load them into our machine and play them all you want. You have your At Games ID, which I had to set one up, and you just put it in your machine. You can download the games. I bought a pack the other day. It was like 4 pinball machines for $30, so it's really not a bad deal. It gives me more playability. It already came with 50 games, and now I have 53, 54 games on it, whatever. Plus, I had bought a pack when I first got it because they do titled pinball machines are really cool. Their company that they work with primarily is Magic Pixel, which did the Zachariah collection on most modern systems, and I bought it on the Switch, and I loved it because I was a huge fan of Zachariah Pinball. And they started out with the, every Zachariah pin that you could basically have in their library. They mod the pins as well. So, like, for example, I come over here. Well, let's start with this first. Game packs. Here you go. This is a prime example. All right. So basically, I can come in and you could buy the Arcade1up, which I did a month for free. It's expensive. I wouldn't do that, but you could come in for $30 and you're getting 6 games right here out of this. Okay, and same thing here. You're getting another pack here for $6 or 6 games for $30. Renovation, same thing. You're getting 8 games there. Over here, you're also getting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You're getting 8 games there. You can literally buy everything you need for this machine through them. It downloads, bing bong bing, just like if you had, your modern system. You're downloading their software onto your system. It's now yours to play. You don't have to worry about modding. You don't have to worry about anything. If you want to pay for the Arcade1up, it's expensive. To me, I think it was, I want to say it was, what, $20 a month? And I just, that was a bit much for me. I just couldn't see myself going through all that. But, it comes with all the games on it that you want to play. Then you can add games to it. That's what Arcade1up needs to really think about doing, is building these cabinets. And they would be a way better, leader at this, because they build the cabinets to look like the arcade machine. So say, for example, you bought the Joust. Okay? You could buy Williams packs, you could buy Midway packs, you could buy Atari packs, you could put Pac-Man on it for all you... It doesn't matter. You're selling the razor and you're giving away the blades. That's the idea behind this. And I don't get, like, At Games kind of gets it. Now, they're not perfect. They don't have, like, every game known to man. So you're going to get what you're going to get. Like, over here in the pinball, let me show you. So, like, I got, let me see, the HD, I got, here we go. This is what I got. I got the micro. And let me tell you, for the price, it was definitely worth it. I think it was on sale. I paid, I think, $250 for it when I got it. And I really enjoy playing this machine thoroughly. In fact, I like it more in design than the Arcade1up ones, because the Arcade1up ones, it doesn't, like, the screen is almost sitting on top of the glass, so it doesn't have the depth that this thing has. But it's the same concept. So I'm getting this machine, and it comes loaded with all these games on it, and I can add packs to it, and in turn have more games to play. And if Arcade1up thought about it, that's what they should be doing. Taking this cabinet, giving you the cabinet with the basic games on it. So say, for example, you're buying a Joust, and they threw on, any multiplayer up to 2 with, whatever fire buttons or whatever. Then give you the option. Here are the packages that will fit your cabinet. You could put these games in, or you can upgrade your control panel and add more games. Yeah, is it more money? But you're catering to your customer. Your customer base will appreciate you for it. They're going to say, hey, this is a great idea. I'm investing in this machine. It's not just a toy that the kids are going to forget in a year, and then we're going to end up selling it on, Facebook Marketplace or whatever. I'm investing in this cabinet. That's how I feel about the micro. I invested in the machine. I'm going to get dividends because I'm going to purchase more games for that unit. And that in turn brings the replay value up, way up here. Okay? Whereas if I'm buying this, I'm getting this group of games, and that's all I'm going to be able to play. And you threw me nothing, because now I don't have that third player control or even fourth player control, because I have Gauntlet on there as well. So unless you've got Gauntlet 2 going on in there, I can't play as, 2 of the 4 characters. So that's my basic problem with At Games is they're not listening to their customer base. Now, does the At Games? No, they're the same. They neither one of them. You buy the product, here it is, here you go. You have a problem, we don't care. They all pretty much act the same way, but at least with At Games, I'm able to do something with the base unit, build on it. You can't do anything with these. You're stuck with what you have, and have fun. You know, unless you are a guy like me, knows how to mod them, or you know you want to pay somebody to mod it, or you want to buy a kit to mod it, and there's instructions. You know, that's the only options you have. So you got to kind of play their game and wait for something to come out that you want to have in your collection, which brings up my other gripe with Arcade1up. I want you to take a look at something. Look at what they have to offer. And how many of these have they sold over and over and over again over the years? You've got your Class of 81 they've had for a couple of years now. Pac-Man they've had forever. Atari they've had forever. You know, all the way down the line. Mortal Kombat they've had forever. Hey, we've got a crane. I'm not sure about the build quality, guys. I've never seen one of their cranes. When you get into the minis, it's a little better because, like, for example, and I brought this up before in my last news report, is that when you take a look at the cabinet, it has the instructions. It looks authentic. It gives you that air of authenticity. I like the immersive feel of the mini cabs. They're doing a pretty decent job. I think the other ones do a little better. My favorite out of the group is the Centipede. I think the Centipede gets it. It's really well done. The buttons, you'll notice, are very close. Again, here it's about size. So when you're building a machine like this, you really got to think about its size compared to what games you want to put in it. And you say to yourself, hey, I want to try to keep it as minimal as possible so that I'm not overloading this thing with so many buttons it's not even fun to play. And I think this fits the bill pretty well. They're doing Centipede and Millipede, Breakout, Liberator, and Avalanche. It gives you the games that will fit in it and fit in it nicely. Then you get something like, for example, I want to say Tempest is a really good example. You know, the buttons are fairly close together, and you'll notice they line up all the way across here. So you're kind of like doing this kind of motion where you have your button finger here and your dial finger over here, and it's, you know, you have all these buttons underneath you can't touch because there's not enough room. So population is the key with these because you're limited in the amount of space that you actually have to populate the field. So you got to really think about what games you want to put in this because you don't want to overpopulate. Now, if I go in here, Tempest, there we go. Tempest, Gravatar, Lunar Lander, Warlords, and Major Havoc. I don't know that I'd have Lunar Lander because of the fact that it does require a few more buttons. Gravatar as well. Gravatar would have probably been better off over on the Asteroids. Warlords, I would have probably, I don't know. Warlords would be good in it because it has the dial. Major Havoc requires some buttons as well. It's such a mixed bag because you look at how populated that it's just, you know, there's too much going on the control panel, and I love the cabinet. I think they did a really decent job on this. You know, I like how it slopes down. I'm not a fan of that usually, but it works for this cabinet. Now, here's my gripe one. So, I think I've mentioned in the past that they used to do a children's version of Pac-Man. Okay? And let me pull that one up. Oops. At Games, Child, Pac-Man. Or no, not At Games. Arcade1up, knucklehead. There we go. All right. So this one is their original. All right. And of course, do they have the picture still? It doesn't look like it does. No, they don't. Okay. I'm going to try to find a picture of it so that we can compare and contrast the cabinet. Let's see. Here it is. Okay. So this is the one they did. And I love it for a lot of reasons. First, it's built for children. It is, you know, it's got the plastic ridge all the way around it. It's thick. It looks like a child's game. The stick looks a bit meh, but that's my take on it. Love that it comes with a stool so the kid can sit in front of it. Those are the things I love about this machine. And then you take a look at this. This is nothing more than their standard cabinet that they used to sell without the base. That's all that is. And they just took and slapped the colors on they had before. Now, maybe for some people that's okay. It, you know, it fits the bill, but very, very different than that. That is really cool. Okay? So that, you know, it to me is a gripe. Yes, it should be. See, look at that. Look at that. Now, and it was even smaller, too. So it was, you know, a tiny little thing. And, you know, I love that little design. I wanted that for my grandkids. I could never find one. And, you know, but you went from that to this. And this looks so much cheaper. This is like I bought this at, you know, Rooms to Go as an afterthought for my child's room kind of thing. And, you know, maybe I'm beating it too harshly, but yeah, no, I don't like it. You know, if this was a one-shot deal and they did this one first, I would say, okay, I get it. That's cool, right? But you did this one, and this one is really cool. And that's what you should have stayed with. You should have done that. Instead, you did that. You know, and that's more of a, well, we got to do something. We got to put stuff on the website. We don't have a whole lot there anymore, you know? And, yeah, I'm just not a fan of it. It's nice Photoshop. But anyway, that's the one I'm not a fan of. And then there's this guy. Yeah, again, I am not a fan of the colors of this cabinet at all. I don't know what they were thinking when they did this, because just a few years ago, they did this one. Pull this one up. Because I even told my wife that if I could ever find one of these, I would sell mine. My 40th anniversary. I really love this cabinet because it has the original feel of the Bally Midway Cabaret style cabinet. It looks really nice. I wouldn't have done this. There's no need for that. You know, like the Ghost Monster and the dots and all that stuff. I would have kept it real classy, you know. Because when you looked at those cabarets, the cabaret cabinets were pretty different from their standard fare, especially at Bally Midway. They were very minimal. And they were done that way intentionally because they were usually put in bars, movie theaters. They wanted to keep the simplicity and to mute it just enough to fit in. It doesn't have to jump out at you. It's just there. It's fun. You can do it for a few minutes. You walk away. Loved the design. So when that came out, I really wanted it. And of course, it's out of stock because I don't make it anymore. I would, if I found one of those, I would buy it in a heartbeat. Even with the screw holes, it looks the part still. Like I wouldn't even worry about covering the screw holes up because it looks like they're supposed to be there. Again, not a fan of the artwork down there, but it has that nice coin door. You know, this plays the part perfectly. If I could find one of those, I'd buy it in a heartbeat because it looks the part, even more so than my 40th. I love that machine. But then you go over to this one. This is a nightmare. Who thought, hey, you know what? Let's make it blue and this art stuff and then that art stuff. No. A thousand times no. If I bought this cabinet, I would convert the whole thing. I would strip it down. I would put the original wood grain. I would buy wood grain vinyl and just slap it on there. I would make it look as authentic as I possibly could. I would go online. I would try to find the original control panel, the original bezel, the original header. I would convert this whole thing. That is god-awful nightmare fuel right there. I don't know what they're thinking when they're doing this stuff. It's like they just look at the property and say, well, just do this. Just throw it at them. Who cares? That's what they're doing with this. And to me, think about your demographic. You have this golden opportunity because you have the rights to this stuff. Why don't you create something that people will actually keep? Nobody's keeping this. They're going to have this for maybe a year, and they're going to go, meh, it's ugly. I don't want it in my house anymore. Whereas if you had this one, you would be like, oh, yeah, I'm keeping that bad boy because it's gorgeous. I mean, that is a beautiful, beautiful machine. It just, you know, what the heck they were thinking when they did the other one, I don't know. I do not know. I love that. I don't know what this one's all about. This is a Sam's Club exclusive, I guess. Is there Pac-Man play? Yeah, because you can see that's just a sticker on the front. Ugh. I mean, you know what's funny? If they had done the sticker on the original cabinets, I think they probably would have sold better. But that's my opinion. Oh, here's a good shot of this one. Look at that. Look at that. Let's see if I can pull that up here. All right, I'm not signing in or logging in or anything else. I mean, look at that. Oh, that's loud. I mean, look at that thing. That's what I'm talking about. That's the kind of cabinet. You sold a product like that, people would buy it because it looks nice. You know? It doesn't look like this. This is terrible. I don't know what the heck you were thinking. That's Arcade1up, shame on you. You know, they kept the lighting underneath because if you look at this one, where is it? Here we go. This one, you're going to see it has the same lighting underneath. So it's the same exact cabinet. Not a fan of the lighting, to be quite honest. That could go away. But the rest of it, I think it looks really nice. I am a very big fan of that cat. It's one of the best they've ever done. And then they took that design and threw up on it and said, hey, buy this. Because that's what you're getting. You know? And how much of this is Arcade1up and how much of this is Basic Fun? And then if you'll notice, like some things say Arcade1up and then other things say Basic Fun. So you don't know who's involved with what. I'm tending to think that like the mini cabs are all Basic Fun. The WrestleFest is Basic Fun. And then the Return of the Jedi. And I think everything else is Arcade1up. All of it. I think they're two companies selling wares on the same website. That's what that's the feel I'm getting from this. And you know, guys, you own all these titles. You could be making banger after banger instead of the same thing over and over and over again. It's so sad that they're doing that, but you know, it's the nature of their business, I guess, you know. And if I was doing it, I'd be doing it a lot differently. I would not be doing what the way they're doing it. And now we have, I think Sonic has been announced officially, so we'll be getting a Sonic the Hedgehog cabinet. Before anybody says Sonic the Hedgehog wasn't in the arcades, they actually did have Sonic 2 in the arcades in a specialty cabinet that was like Play Choice 10. So yes, it was in the arcade. So let's just back it up a notch because it was there. I don't know. You know, I lose faith in a lot of this because of they're resting on their laurels and investing things like this. Like, first off, you got to know how to work on a crane. So if you don't know how to work on a crane, this thing's going to die and you're going to throw it out, which is probably why the price point keeps coming down. It's now $499. I think this thing was like $800 when it first came out, and now it's down to $499. I don't know how to feel about it. I just don't. I'm going to try to turn the volume down so that we can look this over and peruse this thing. Hit play. Here we go. Number one, look at the honking claw on this thing. That's why you have to use those balls. I would convert that to a smaller one immediately. Because without the capsules, it's just like pointless junk. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. It's just, ugh. And the who's their art designer? Because those colors are terrible. I'm sorry. I'm going to call it out. Horrendous. Horrendous. I would redo the whole thing. I work on cranes at work. They're not fun. They always break down. And imagine, now you have one in your house that you've got to maintain. Here you call somebody like me, and we'll come out and fix it. It's the state that we're in with this stuff. And there has to be other companies out there that want to provide the service. And we don't know the whole story. Maybe, you know, the amount of money they're spending on licensing is probably killing them. And, you know, just poor choices as a whole that create nonsense like this. I don't know. I don't know. It drives me crazy, you know, because I said it in the beginning. When I first saw these, I was like, man, this is a joke. There's just no way. And now I'm saying the same thing because it's like you have a very limited mess of things to sell. It's all recycled, same. Yeah, the cocktail table's pretty nice. I'll give them that. The cocktail table, let's take a look at it here. It looks like it lights up because they, of course, airbrushed in or used Photoshop to indicate that there's a light there. Yeah. I hate when you have vertical and horizontal kind of stuck together because in a case like this, the horizontal is going to suffer because it's on a vertical screen, which means it's going to be tiny, especially on that screen. We're having fun. Look at us. In fact, I think I've seen a few of these out in a couple of arcades. I could be wrong. Maybe they're not. But yeah. I love that they call control panels decks. But yeah. This is their Miss Pac-Man cocktail table. It passes pretty good as a cocktail. I'll give them that. That's all right. That'll sell. When I started my business back in 2002, I sold more cocktail tables than anything else. I had over 375 uprights that I would, you know, between collecting, restoring, and everything else. But they all wanted brand new cocktails, so I would order because I didn't cut my own wood. But there was a company out there that did, so I would order their kit and assemble the whole thing. And, you know, I would sell a lot of these. So, yeah, that I could see selling. Yeah, now this looks more like Pac-Man Pixel Bash style, which we have at Disney, because it has this down here. Basically all the same games that has, with the exception of Hopping Mappy's not on there. King and Balloon I don't see. Splatterhouse isn't on there. God, these guys are terrible with Photoshop. What is up with you? Terrible. Ugh. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't understand the whole Miss Pac-Man thing down at the bottom there either. That's terrible. Terrible. You know, I want to give them the benefit of the doubt, but you guys got to step it up. You're going to be out of business like in a couple years, if you're not sooner. And a lot of people have speculated that they were going to, you know, fall soon. And I think that Basic Fun jumping in may help them if Basic Fun doesn't step on their own toes, you know. Their build quality, I've heard, is about the same as Arcade1up. I like the Return of the Jedi, and I've said this in my last news post, is that because of the angles, I love the way the cabinet angles itself. Very well, let me pull it up. I'll show you what a Return of the Jedi cab looked like. It's very different, but yet very similar in a way. The Jedi. And I'm going to say arcade game. There we go. So basically, it's an interpretation. So like if I look at this guy, I can see the angular part of it here feels a lot like this guy in a way here. In fact, I kind of like it more than the original. Don't hate me for it. I don't think this cabinet's aged well at all, because I believe this is the one they used Major Havoc used as well. And Return of the Jedi was such a hard game to begin with. It's such a difficult game. But I don't know. This appeals to me. If I was a big Star Wars fan, I would probably jump on this cabinet. But this one is a basic fun cab, and I think it plays the part very well. You're getting all 3 games, which is great. This is, like with Dragon's Lair. It would be a cabinet you wouldn't alter per se, because it is giving you the basic games in that genre that you want to play in the first place. With the Dragon's Lair, it was Dragon's Lair Space Ace and Dragon's Lair 2 Time Warp. And because they were using the scoreboard, it would make it very difficult to figure out how to mod the scoreboard to work with the Pi, and probably somebody has at this point. But, given that this one has all 3 essential Star Wars games from the early 80s in it, there would be nothing to do other than to play it. So you would leave this alone completely and just have it do its thing. And like I said, I don't mind the design. I think it screams Star Wars. I like the angles. I like the dark aesthetic of the cabinet. It works for what it is. So this one would be one I would actually consider, because it plays the part and you're able to play the games. I've heard the controller's pretty decent, but then I know that there's another one out there. Glenn sells one that is even better. He's mimicked the whole Atari controller for the flight stick, so it would probably and it mounts exactly the same. Like you just pull this one off, put the new one on, and it does well. So yeah, I like it. Like if you were a big Star Wars fan and or you had a kid that loves Star Wars, and I love how this room looks like it's out of Rooms to Go, because that's what they always look like. They always look like it's a staged Rooms to Go room. That would fit the bill for me. Jedi was such a hard game. I could never get to the end ever. So. But yeah, I mean, it fits the part, it's okay. So, if you go back to the main list of things that I would look at buying, that's here now. I would buy the Jedi. I would probably buy WrestleFest, because I was a big fan of the original WrestleFest game. So I definitely would probably buy that one. The Centipede, because it holds a special place in my heart, and I would buy the Centipede. Other than that, no. I just wouldn't. I wouldn't. And that it shows, because if you look, their prices are dropping. They're dropping. Because, I had mentioned this before. They started out, low. And I think a fair price for these games, and they seem to have listened, is $500. $500 is a fair price for what you're getting. Okay? They went from 500, and at one point, some of their cabinets were $800. And I'm thinking, if I'm paying $800, I can go buy a used Pac-Man for that price and restore it myself. Well, I'm not going to spend $800 on MDF that's very thin, artwork that peels like a banana. I would buy the real thing. So why would I spend $800 on it? And I guess they're listening, because their prices have come down tremendously on a lot of their machines. I mean, you can see right here. Centipede's a little high. $599 I can kind of forgive because it's still in that $500 range, minus $100. These have come down dramatically. So these would be a definite great purchase if you have a small room. You could set these up. And, you know, suffice it to say, the Pi is a very small machine itself, so you could fit it in the bottom of that bad boy and have some fun with any dial game you wanted. You know, and then I'd buy that and restore the whole thing to its original glory. I wouldn't, that hot mess neon Pac-Man. Ugh. Other than that, guys, that's what I've got. The updates from Arcade1up are few and far between. That is the latest machine is their Joust and Rampage Deluxe. Who knows? They might have the what they call the Supreme Series Joust and Rampage coming out. I doubt it. Because, again, it's a retread that they've done over and over and over too many times. It would have been smart to start there and maybe offer this as a secondary option if you didn't want to spend that kind of money. It's very limited. It screams desperation at this point that they're grasping at straws. And we're talking about a company that's been around for 10 years, a little over 10 years. And they're trying to find their way again. And I think that's the problem, is they're trying to find their way. They haven't found it yet. That's apparent. And I think it comes down to taking the license you have and building cabinets on those licenses. Not just a cabinet, but give everybody options. Like if I had Namco and there would be a Mappy, there would be a King and Balloon, there would be, Galaga, Galaxian, everything. Doesn't mean you have to build it all. It means you display it on your website. These ones are, store exclusives. These ones you buy on our website. That's how you do that. Okay, real simple. Same thing with the Williams and Midway. You have so many games. Wizard of War, guys. And Gauntlet. Listen up. Tubin, for crying out loud. Give us a Tubin cabinet. You guys could fill this thing up and people would be banging your door down. Instead of giving us the same mediocre stuff that you do every single year without fail. How many Pac-Man machines can you do, Arcade1up, before you oversaturate? Nobody wants a Pac-Man machine anymore. Or look at what these guys are doing for once, because that's why they're still in business. That's why, they have a market share, because they build a product like this that basically allows me to put what I want in it from their site. There's an idea. Huh? Let's try that. There's so many things. Like if I could buy Arcade1up right now, if I had millions of dollars to spend, I would buy it, and those are the things I would do. I would give my customer options. I would give them the option of, what cabinet do you want? Here's what we offer that's going to be store exclusive. Here's what we offer that's going to be on the website. You choose. We'll get it to you, and then set up a marketplace. They can purchase more games on their machine. No modding required. You have a huge library of games, more so than AtGames has. You guys have the market share, but you're not even utilizing it to its full potential, and you don't see it. You don't see it. It's driving me crazy. Okay, guys, we're almost at an hour. I'm going to end it here. I want to thank you very much for listening to my rants and raves about Arcade1up and AtGames and everything else in between. There's probably other options out there for these cabinets, and maybe I do some research and I bring that stuff to you guys as well. Because I know there's probably a few of you out there that are thinking about having one of these home machines in your house. And I can tell you from experience that they're both decent products. There's nothing wrong with any of them, okay? Other than their customer service, which is terrible, okay? Both of them. But they build a good product. They just need to learn how to do it right. Arcade1up, you guys have been doing it, I think, longer than most as far as the physical cabinets are concerned, and yet you are not doing well because you're not listening to the customer. So start listening. All right, guys, I'm going to end it here. It's almost at an hour. I want you guys to keep playing like it's 1981, and we'll try to do this at least once a week, and I'll shout at you later. Thanks you very much for joining me. Get over to the arcadearchives.com. Check us out. I'll talk to you later. Bye.